Hey, good morning, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. Sorry I couldn't be there with you live. Had to stay home with children today. Wife's working and our daycare is off, so here we are. But I wanted to record some thoughts with you and to share with you real quickly. Took some notes here, so I hope you don't mind me reading off the iPad, but now that I said that, I screwed it up. Here we go. So, it's tough out there. I don't think anybody can deny that. It's been a challenging and amazing year. I think the amount of intensity in the marketplace is something that I personally have never seen. For everything that I've talked to and everybody that I've talked to, they've kind of shared the same sentiment that it is just nuts out there. Wanted to acknowledge that, and I really am inspired by the job that all of you guys are doing, especially people that are working buyer heavy, where you're writing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 offers in a very short time window. That's taxing both on your clients, but it's also taxing on us. And I think a lot of times, we don't give ourselves enough credit for the amount of stress that we put ourselves under and the amount of emotional baggage that comes with. So, I guess my point in saying all of that is to make sure that you're taking care of yourselves, make sure that you're taking some time to recharge, whether that's a couple of hours, go for a walk, go for a run, whatever it is that, lets you relax and regroup, because man, it's tough when you're writing that many offers a week and then knowing that you have to do it the next week, the next week, the next week, the next week. So make sure you're taking care of yourself so that we can be at our best. I think educating ourselves as to what's going on in the market right now is one of the most challenging things. From what I've seen and the counsel that I've been giving a lot of my clients when we're in one of those situations where we know we're going to be, up against 2, 3, 4, 5, or God knows how many offers. I try and, rely on the data, because they say, well, what should I offer? And two things. And I think, a lot of people have heard me do this before, but I always turn it back on my buyers and I say, well, let's say the house is listed for $350, right? If I call you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, tomorrow and I say, the house sold for $375, are you okay? Or are you feeling like, for that amount of money, we probably should have bought it? And then we play that game on upwards. So if I said, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, that property sold for $380, are you okay? Or do you feel like you probably should have bought it for that? And you kind of keep playing that game up until you get to the point where it almost like the anxiety comes out, where they're like, oh God, for that, no way. I'm like, perfect. There's your top line number. In terms of what are things selling for, I've also been telling all my buyers, look, the data right now is a lagging indicator of value. We'll start to see how this market is actually escalated as the data starts to come through in the coming month to month and a half. But right now, a lot of the sales are still without data, and the market is here and the data is here. So what is that delta? If I had to put a number on it, I would say somewhere between 10 and 15%, and in some areas a little bit more. But that's where I'm seeing, both personally as well as in the data, where things are getting the offers accepted at, and we'll see how the closing numbers actually look. But that's the advice that I'm giving my clients. So on a 350, I'm saying, look, competitive offers are probably going to be somewhere between 385 and maybe a little bit north of 400, in some cases, maybe even more than that. One thing I think that's important to do is share our experience with our clients. And, something that I tell a lot of buyers in almost any market, whether it's just a, multiple offer situation in a normal year, whereas, one other competing offer, is that, out of the, several hundred houses that I've sold over my career, I've never once had a buyer call me, a year, 2 years later and say, hey, Kyle, I really wish we would have gotten that first house, or that house that we lost out on. And I think in the moment, it's hard to really be candid about that. And it's really hard for a buyer to internalize that, but I think it really holds true, because what I do know is I have had plenty of clients, a plethora of clients really, and I don't remember one that was to the contrary, that have called me up a year or two later and said, Kyle, I'm really so glad that we have this house, and I'm really so glad that we did not get that previous house, because this house, serves our needs so much better. We're so much happier here. This is such a better place, and thank God it worked out the way that it did. So I think that's an important point, and it sounds kind of, silly, and you can call it, Jesus or Buddha or karma or whatever you want to call it. But real estate has a way of working itself out, and I think there's a lot of, will or whatever, some sort of the stars align, if you will, that makes the buyer get the house that they're meant to have. Or if they don't get a house at all, there's usually a reason for that, and a job transfer comes up or some sort of life event happens. I've really seen it, time and time again, and as strange as it sounds, it's held true with pretty much every client that I've ever worked with in a multiple bid situation. I think another thing that we could look at, because the market is up, there's no doubt about it. Things are selling for more money than they were a year ago, and escalating in a way that we don't typically see, where we're having, 10, 15, 20% price appreciation in a matter of months or a short time. I think it's not a bad idea for clients that have the time flexibility to perhaps consider building. And for us as agents to perhaps consider rekindling or establishing a new relationship with a builder. I know contractors are busy, but look a little bit outside the area, make some phone calls, check down to Elmira or Corning, see if there's a builder that maybe isn't quite so busy that might want to put up a house for a client of ours, or maybe look up in Syracuse, or maybe over towards like Cortland, Norwich, something like that. Find a builder that might be ready to take the jump from being a home remodeler to a home builder. Might be a great opportunity for you to lock in with somebody. And maybe, I've found at least the land market is not quite as crazy as the resale market. So, with prices being up, now granted building costs are up too, so I don't know if they're going to be saving money per se, but it might be a good opportunity for somebody to get a house that, allows a little bit more time to consider and ponder and things like that. So check out with some builders and maybe see what that route's, what possibilities there are going that route. I know I have a client right now who lost 2 or 3 bids and was like, this is stupid. Like, why am I paying $50, $70, $80, $100,000 over list price when I could go, there's 3 or 4 nice building lots we could go build on, and I can pick my finishes and I don't feel like I'm jammed under the intensity of a multiple bid situation. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. When we are going to compete, I think doing pre-structurals are very, very important, or if your clients are comfortable coming in non-contingent, obviously is the strongest offer that you can bring. But I would encourage your clients, when you're talking going 10, 15, 20, $50,000 over ask, spending the $300, $400, $500 to do a structural ahead of time is money well spent. And it's kind of just the cost of doing business right now, because I really think if you're coming in on a multiple bid situation and you want to do a structural, you're probably dead in the water. So that's frustrating for a buyer. It can be nerve-wracking for a buyer, and it can be in some cases maybe a little bit, dangerous for a buyer. But it's the nature of the market that we're working with. And again, I'm not advocating people shouldn't do structurals. I think people should have all the information that they need to feel comfortable to make the decisions they want to make. However, it's my job as your professional to say, look, it's going to make you uncompetitive, or if we have competition in this offer situation, probably we're not going to be able to have that luxury. So we need to do our due diligence ahead of time, spend the money, and get that information so we can make one offer on the deal nice and clean, or as clean as we can make it. Couple more points. I think, we're in a peak state of intensity right now. Like, the needle is just, pegged all the way up high. Historically speaking, our market tends to kind of have this huge surge in activity, and this is our curve here, right, over the course of a year from January to December. So we're right here in that intensity curve, which is pretty normal. But I think, our intensity curve is certainly like up here, this year because of the lack of inventory. But if the market does follow the typical, at least trend line, that intensity should wane as the summer goes on. And I think that's an important message to relay to buyers that maybe have some flexibility, that they don't have to buy in the next 20 days, the next 30 days. I do think the intensity will cool. I think there will be a certain subset of buyers that just get out of the marketplace and rent or do whatever for a year because it's just too intense and they can't, purchase the product they want to purchase, with the terms that make sense for them. So I do think the intensity will cool. I don't know if inventory will come back, but I would wager to bet, in August, September, there's going to be a little less intensity than there is right now. And the last point I wanted to make, this is an amazing time to make calls. As hard as it is to, take a bunch of beats in a week and then make some prospecting calls, I still think that, reaching out to people, especially people that have multiple properties. If a landlord or somebody who has, multiple homes, give them a call and at least say, hey, if there was a year that you were thinking about, maybe weeding out the garden, and I think that's a nice little way to put it, is that, if you have 10 buildings, there's probably one of them that's a problem child. There's probably one of them where you're like, I bought it, but it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I think that's the kind of building that would be great to put on the market right now. So, look back through your client list or your contact list and see if there's anybody that has multiple buildings. I think there's always one or two that you can say, well, for the right price, I'd probably sell that one. put that number on there. I don't care what number it is. Put it on, get it listed, give yourself the opportunity. Worst case scenario, you might pick up some buyers off of it, but best case scenario, you might look like a hero. You made the phone call, created the sale to happen, created that piece of inventory to come on the market, and got it sold for a super premium price. That's where you can create, an advocate, and then maybe a year, 2 years down the road when they're looking to liquidate some more properties. Who are they going to think of? Of course, you, because you were the one that instigated that sale and got them much more money than they thought they could for their properties. So that's what I got for you this morning. Again, I apologize I couldn't be with you. So there's my 7 tips. We'll send it out on a YouTube video here shortly. And thank you for joining us. I hope you have a great and productive week. If I can be of help to you in any way, feel free to reach out. I'm always available on my phone, text, call, email, and I'll be in the office tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you all soon. And